go ahead and call the meeting to order for July 1st. Please stand for the invocation. Ron Ellis, please.
Gracious God, we come to you asking for your benevolence, for your grace and mercy to be upon us. Lord, allow us to be thankful on this week of Independence Day. Allow us to be gracious and allow us to understand what your needs are, Lord, because it's your needs that guide us and strengthen us. Look out for the people of Jeffersonville. Look out for the firemen and the police officers and all of the men and women that work for this city. Bless them and strengthen them and guide them, Lord. And Lord, we ask that you touch the hearts of each council person that's here this evening. Touch our hearts and give us the strength to do what saith the Lord. And we ask this in the precious name of Jesus. Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Roll call, please.
Councilperson White.
Present.
Councilperson Harris.
Here.
Councilperson Maples.
Here.
Councilperson Gill. Here. Councilperson Hawkins.
Here.
Council President Zastopny.
Present.
Councilperson Ellis.
Here.
Councilperson Samuel.
Here.
Let the record reflect 8 council members present. Councilperson Owen absent.
And Mr. Owen texted me to let me know that he was out of town for work. Couldn't get back. So that's where he is. First up, minutes to be approved from June 17th.
Make a motion to approve the minutes for June 17, 2019.
Second. A motion second to approve the minutes. Any other discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Approval of the agenda.
So moved.
Sorry.
If I could request that number 9 be tabled, 2019 OR 27.
I would also like to request that number 13 be tabled. Mr. Ashton called and said that he had an emergency in his family and wouldn't be able to be here.
I'll amend my motion to amend the agenda that 9 and 13 be tabled.
Second.
A motion and a second to approve the agenda with 9 and 13 tabled. Any other discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed?
So I'll make a motion to approve the amended agenda.
We have a motion second to approve the amended agenda. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Accept claims to be approved.
I have a few adjustments on Civil City, page 3. The claim for property and casualty for travelers for the $246,000 was adjusted by $14.06 down. And then I have another one on page 10. In the police budget for Sims, it's a reimbursement, and that should be $200 instead of $100.
And did you change the numbers invoice out from the other supplies? Did you make those adjustments?
That's in Parks.
Oh, okay. It's got so many notes here.
But yes, I did. Everybody got that? New total is $1,317,211.03.
I'll make a motion to approve the amended amount of $1,317,211.03.
Second.
We have a motion second to approve the amended amount for claims. Any other discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? It's approved. Next up, Parks claims.
Okay, page 1 I have a few changes on this one. Page 1 for Deering Floor Center. Housing is taking care of the 8,830, so that one is being deleted. The next one down has a GL change to improvements of the $5,110. The next one down from that for $1,520 is also an improvement. And then the next one for $831 is repair and maintenance. So those GL numbers have been changed. Then on page 5, redevelopment's taking care of 2 of the McCoy nurseries. The one for $1,121.45 is going to be deleted off of these claims, and the $1,459.77. So that one's being taken off. Is everybody ready for a new total?
Yep.
It is $296,266.10.
I'll make a motion to approve the amended change total now for parks of $296,266.10. And I want to thank you all. It was a lot of back and forth, but we finally got it all straightened out. Thank you.
Second.
We have a motion and second to approve the amended amount for parks. Any other discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed?
Thank you.
Approved. Next up, report of the clerk.
I don't have anything.
All right. Moving on, number 9 tabled. Next up is number 11, Andy Crouch, 2019 OR 28, ordinance transferring certain funds within the same department.
Have there been any changes? I'll make
No
a
changes.
motion to approve 2019 OR 28 and the third and final.
Second.
We have a motion and second to pass 2019 OR 28 and the third and final reading. Any other discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed?
Thank you.
Passes. New business. Lisa Gill, Rose Hill Neighborhood.
Yes, I agreed to sponsor Rose Hill on the agenda because they want to speak to our noise ordinance, and I know they're going to be speaking on Rose Hill, but I've been having a lot of complaints and questions and concerns about the noise ordinance. I think it's time we might have to look at amendments, so I'll turn it over to her.
Yeah, it's been about 7 years since I've been up here, and then we were talking about preserving a home. Hello, my name is Mary Jo Carrico. I live at 217 West Market Street, across from the Big 4 station. I have lived here for 15 years, and many of my neighbors are longtime residents. I'm going to try and convey an accurate depiction of the quality of life in Rose Hill when our residents have no enforcement of the noise ordinance. Then I'm going to inform what we want our Jeffersonville City Council to know to support the quality of life that we had until 3 years ago, before all the noise ruined our peace and quiet. 3 years ago, when the Abbey Road on the river came to Rose Hill, it was dreadfully and painfully loud. As far as I know, no one from the city asked for our impressions about the noise levels during the 5 days of concerts. However, the neighbors did not complain or disrupt the event. I did not say anything until the second spring, when I personally talked to Gary, who was the promoter. He was responsive and worked with us to turn down the volume and keep it from reaching inside our homes. This year was the best one so far, and Gary seems to be respectful toward us. Also 3 years ago, the Parlor Pizza business opened up and immediately began using outdoor speakers that blasted music until late in the night. It became very difficult for everyone in the neighborhood to watch television and to sleep without the parlor music disturbing us. We called our complaints into the police. The music always continued just as loud. We wondered why there was no consideration for us in enforcing the noise ordinance. Soon after, one neighbor couple moved away because of the noise. We wanted to give the city the benefit of the doubt. We trusted that all the wrinkles of progress would be ironed out. We believed someone in our city government would be looking out for our quality of life. But I knew something wasn't right. 3 years ago, I sent an email to all the council members and to the mayor, asking for help to reduce the noise levels of the music and the late hours it was playing. Because there was no response from city government, For the rest of that year and last year, we decided to continue to call the police to document when our lives were disrupted and prayed for the best. Fast forward to this year. We have been experiencing more frequent loud noise issues causing undue stress to our daily lives. For example, my next-door neighbors who have 2 small children. For example, my neighbor who can't relax inside her own home after working all day. So I decided to figure out what was going on. We suffered through a perfect example as we were waiting to speak to you tonight. I have identified 3 separate noise ordinance problems: enforcement, free speech nuisance issues, and permitted events. First, enforcement. The noise ordinance says that no loudspeakers may be used after 7 p.m., that no noise may be heard disturbing a neighboring property after 7 p.m., that no noise at all may be heard after 11 p.m. Many problems will be solved when the residential noise ordinance is enforced for everyone, residents, businesses, and special events. No one should be given permission to blast their loudspeakers as loud and as late as 11 o'clock p.m. in anyone's neighborhood. This week, the Parlor held their music bingo from 7 to 9 p.m. in a way that for the first time their volume did not intrude on the neighbors. We applaud and appreciate their efforts to reach common ground. We welcome and enjoy many of the events at the park, like Jeff Fest, which are not excessively loud and end by the early evening. Now we need the city support, preserving our quality of life. The city-sponsored exercise classes continue to blast their speakers too loud. Even visitors coming to Waterfront Wednesday remarked how annoying it is to hear the music and yelling of directions from the instructor over the speakers, and I live a block away. They commented as such to me as they walked by to go to the stairs to go over the river. Even though it was before 7 p.m., if it has to be that loud, then take it somewhere else where they can be that loud without disturbing the neighbors. We must have the noise ordinance enforced out of respect for us, the residents. The second problem is what to do about groups or individuals who take free speech to the extreme using microphones and amplifiers. It was totally unacceptable on the day of the Pride Festival as members from the Sovereign King Church set up and for at least an hour spewed extremely hateful, unchristian speech at very high volume all over the neighborhood using language to incite everyone within earshot. If the noise ordinance was enforced and the Pride Festival stage was not set up in a residential area, we, the neighbors, would not have suffered this out-of-control spectacle. The Jeffersonville noise ordinance clearly states that there is a general prohibition against noise that unreasonably annoys, disturbs, and endangers the comfort, repose, health, peace, safety, or welfare of any person or precludes their enjoyment of property. We may consider following the examples of other cities in developing nuisance, inciting, and loitering rules to deter this practice. Madison has such ordinances, but those kinds of free speech violations are found at their waterfront park where special events are assigned away from neighborhoods, like Rose Hill. We must find a way to curb this intrusion. Please discuss it with the authorities who have the knowledge to make good judgment in this area. I am sure we can do something to push back to protect everyone and let the disruptors know they will not be allowed to take advantage of free speech rights. Please give the police the tools to have some control of such public displays. The third problem with permitted events is very important. I have read the noise ordinances from both the cities of Louisville and Madison. They are actually very close to Jeffersonville's ordinance, and they have been effective for many years with no plan to change them. Because there was no mention of permitted special events in their ordinances, I contacted the Special Events Office of Louisville and the Mayor's Office of Madison to ask specifically about their respective special events policy. I described to them what transpired with the large, loud stage at the Pride Festival in the Big Four Station Park, as well as the church members with their microphones. They both stated, that would never be allowed. That is too close to houses, and it is in a residential area. As a matter of fact, complaints of excessive noise at any time of the day or night to the Louisville Dispatch will trigger a call to send out an ATF inspector to gauge in real time if the ordinance is being violated and issue a citation whether the event was permitted or not. Louisville and Madison enforce their noise ordinances to protect their residents. Why can't Jeffersonville? Here's a recent example of someone who thinks her permit allows noise ordinance violation. Last Saturday, without notice, the Pride Festival set up a huge stage across the street from my house. I knew we were left to fend for ourselves again. On that day, after enduring the church members incite the loud disruption and more than 5 hours of nonstop, high-volume live music, the stage switched to filler music. Suddenly, the volume was turned up even higher. Neighbors came out of their homes very angry. It was well after 9 p.m., and in response to our anger, I entered the park from the back mesh fence closest to my house to find the promoter and asked to please turn the volume down. When I reached her and asked, she answered, "We have a permit." I repeated it was too loud and the neighbors are angry and we can't take it, and again to turn it down for the residents, and she refused. So I walked off angrily towards the stage area and the mesh fencing, going back to my home. I was followed by Evan Stone and the promoter's security detail. I was told I had to be escorted out of the front entrance. I told them, no, I'm going out the way I came in, and then they threatened to call the JPD to remove me. I was left in total disbelief, and more neighbors came out angry about the volume. We had no recourse. I knew the police wouldn't do anything, so I didn't bother to call. Mrs. Lee, a neighbor, she called, and she was told the event had a permit until 11 o'clock, and no enforcement would be considered. It is our neighborhood. We are the residents. We are the ones paying taxes. The concert promoters do not pay taxes. We all who are affected with blasting loudspeakers pay more taxes than any one business with loudspeakers. I have two more observations about these noise problems. Jeffersonville is encouraging more residential housing surrounding the Big Four station. More people whose quality of life will be degraded by all of this loud noise. And all of this unpleasant loud noise is not a good picture of Jeffersonville for our out-of-town guests who come here to spend money and who might consider moving here. Tomorrow I am on the agenda for the Interdepartmental Permit Board, I think it's called, and will be requesting their application stipulations be honored. It states all City of Jeffersonville ordinances will be followed. There are no houses around. If there are no houses around the events, then they can be as loud as they want. So large, loud events should be placed in more appropriate venues or not get a permit at all. I think we all agree to continue to work on making Abbey River on the Road better. That event should be the only one like that allowed each year until it's time to negotiate a new contract. That event lasts 5 days until midnight. That is enough. Why can't we enjoy the quality of life protections just like residents in Louisville and in Madison? Shame on Jeffersonville for allowing promoters to be handed more rights than us, the tax-paying residents. We want you to enforce the noise ordinance and do not waive it anymore. I would like to answer any questions you may have, address any comments, but more importantly, I respectfully request an immediate response to correct this wrong in the name of progress and prevent the tragedy resulting from discriminating against your own residents and ruining our quality of life. Shall I go sit down? Pardon?
Breathe.
Well, it's
Are
been
you
3 years.
the,
It's been 3 years. We can't take it
Are you
anymore.
the spokesperson? Because I was told there were several that...
There's 3 other people on the,
okay.
Yeah.
for public comment. I don't know if they want to add anything or if that was enough.
I need her statement.
Oh, okay. Mary Jo, I missed your last name.
Careful.
Carrico. Do you have a copy? Do you have a copy of the statement you can give to Ms. Conlon so it can be in the record?
I'll get it to you tomorrow. Okay. Okay? Sure.
Is there a Jerry Sue that wants to speak? No? Was that enough? Or are you going?
Pardon? No.
You like to speak?
I'm going to be as thorough as what she is.
Okay. You have 3 minutes.
All right.
Name and address.
What I put down was,
Name and address, please.
Pardon?
Your name and address?
Oh, my name is Jerry Sue Griffith, and I live at 220 Pearl, and I live right across from the parlor, from Preservation Place, right by them. I was willing to give them their chance when they wanted to go in there. They told the zoning board they would put up tall trees, and they wanted to be good neighbors. They did not put up the tall trees to block the noise. They have not been good neighbors. And I thought, I wonder why that is. I've gone over there and talked to them. They make a joke of it because they have people working there who have no investment in the restaurant. It's investors that own it. So the owners are not there all the time, and all they know is what their employees tell them. I forgot, I knew I should want to put this in line. So I have gone over nicely for the past 2 or 3 years, and I said, would y'all please tone it down? I can't watch my TV. My windows are shaking. I have to work tomorrow. I need to go to bed. And nothing was done. We have called the police, and sometimes they go over there. I'm not going to say they don't try. Their hands were tied. They try to help when they can. Okay? So then, anyone who says we don't have a noise problem downtown is wrong. We do have a noise problem. And you know as well as I do, when people are drinking and partying, common sense goes out the door. We are not an unreasonable group. We try to work with them. We don't complain unless it's just totally so bad you can't stand it. We let a lot of things slide. My windows have shook. They hear them back at the evening news. You can hear them everywhere. Now, you have other restaurants downtown that have bars, down the street even. You don't hear them carrying on like they do up next door. Then it seems like every weekend we have an event in the park. So that's loud. So we not only have next door in the neighborhood, we have across in the park. The Zuma or whatever that is, she has a big megaphone. Those should be outlawed. She doesn't need that because they're a small group in there and they don't need that.
30 seconds.
Oh, I'm sorry. Now, let's see. It seems like there's always something every other day around there. We've got expensive condos being built over there on Mulberry. Do you think these people want to pay the price they're going to pay for those condos and live there and listen to all this noise? And I don't know. I just wanted to say we're not unreasonable, Mary. We just get angry at times because we can't get help. And we've tried to do it on our own diplomatically. And they think it's a joke. Okay. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
We got some other.
Yeah. Is it Minaj Miller?
That's right. Hello. My name is Minaj Miller. You ready?
Yeah, go ahead.
I live at 209 West Market Street. I've been in downtown Jeff for about 10 years. I wanted to say that we love the growth in Jeffersonville too. We love the park. We love the celebrations. We love to see the families. But what I'd ask you to keep in mind is that's a small family park. It's not really a venue that's appropriate for festivals. Abbey Road is even kind of borderline because there are 5 or 6 stages that go on periodically throughout the day. The Pride Festival was great. We'd love to see the celebration. But if you could see the size of the stage and their setup with the amplifiers, literally that stage was about here, and our homes were about the last row of your chairs. So you can imagine house music playing at 9 o'clock, really, really loud. I think Jerry mentioned we're not unreasonable, and we're not. We love so much that goes on there. We're just asking you to really vet the appropriateness of the events that are approved to go on. There are other places in Jeffersonville that can house these events, and we're all for the growth of Jeffersonville. We love Jeffersonville. We just want to have a quality of life that you all want for your families too at the end of the day. Thanks.
Thank you. And there was one more person who signed up to talk about noise ordinance. It's hard to read the name, maybe Paulette?
Pass.
You're going to pass, okay.
She did it.
All right, great. So that's everybody who wanted to speak on this topic, and with that, I guess, do you want to respond, Lisa? since you brought
I
it
think
up?
it was like a matter of timing. I called the clerk's office, she called me, and I think Mary Jo was on, so she'd asked to sponsor. But downtown is different because businesses, I've been getting complaints in my district and even actually in Joe's district mainly too. And it is where loud music, it's bands playing in the garages, or loud music with the cars, and trying to sleep, and they have a baby, they need to get up early, same. But the number one thing is they all call the police, but I think there's something we need to look at in what's called the decimals that's in our whatever. But because apparently the police don't have any way of gauging it. What, you're shaking your head no for?
There's no measurement of it. We went through that when we were on the council. There's no way to measure this.
Well, I thought, maybe a group of us could get together, or even Les can look at, or Larry can look at other cities, or if there's something that we need to put in the hands of the police, which I know that Kevin's back there. But I do think our ordinance needs to be updated, because I think Les pointed out to me that the way the decimals are set, you could be running your lawnmower. I personally wait till 7:30 at night because of the heat to run my lawnmower, but my neighbors know that I do that. So I just think there could be a compromise, and I think there's some different things we need to look at.
I see our attorney's gone up to the microphone, so he must have something to say.
Well, I do. So what you got to understand is this. When you're dealing with issues such as noise, and obviously there are people who think that just someone speaking is just noise, and sometimes people think that others speak louder than they should, and when you don't limit the sound based upon a quantitative method, which is reaching these decibel limitations, then you have a problem, because then you get into a constitutional question. So it can't be enforcement that lacks a quantitative statement of what everyone has to understand it is that they must do and follow. Then the other thing is it must be content neutral. So I would say that if I were a lawyer, and I guess I am in my day job, the references to the Pride Festival offers the opportunity for someone to imply that if you enforce that some ordinance as to the Pride Festival, then in fact you may be engaging in an unconstitutional act of discrimination, because you don't have a well-defined, content-neutral, unambiguous impediment to free speech. So if you're going to look at trying to do something differently, what you need to do is have a very specific statement as to how much noise you're going to allow, and that it is in a content-neutral manner. Doesn't matter whether it's the Pride Festival or the Republican Festival or the Democrat Festival or the Wild Hillbillies from Eastern Kentucky that moved to Jeffersonville Festival. It has to be defined in a neutral manner, and it has to be specific, so it in fact cannot be enforced in a prejudicial way. So what you all have is you have a 1981 ordinance, a 1986 ordinance, and a 2004 amendment that Ms. Carrico referred to, the 1986 ordinance. There are some vague references defining what a decibel is. There's some discussions about decibels in that, but it doesn't provide you any specificity about what it is, where it is, and how much noise is going to be considered. So as your attorney who doesn't want to see you get into a constitutional mess, because those are the worst kind, I would suggest if you're going to look at changing things, that you potentially consider putting together a committee of the most...
Before we go to that, I'd be curious if the administration is one who enforces the ordinances, and they
Correct.
obviously must have had a hard time with the way this ordinance is set up. Have you looked into, Mr. Merkley, have you looked into changing, or where the holes are in our current ordinance so we can close those?
We have an ordinance that's outdated, and the decibel limits that are listed there would force us to enforce the ordinance from the standpoint that River State would not occur, concerts at Water Park would not occur, movies downtown would not occur, and we could go even further out throughout the city where noise ordinance that there has to be some quantitative measurement of what the sound is, and that is decibel. Evansville just went through this. If you Google noise ordinance in Evansville, they debated this, I think, for like 6 hours at one city council meeting, and finally were able to come to terms with a new noise ordinance. So yes, it does need to be updated. I would suggest that you also consult with the police department, because at the end of the day, they're the ones who have to go out and enforce this, but it does need to be updated.
I have a question of a legal nature. As we, in my district, it wasn't events, but we battled the noise. This is not new ground for me, but something that does, as far as the free speech part of this goes, what role is the amplification? When people start using megaphones at events, does free speech, obviously, I don't want to impinge upon anyone's right to express themselves, but when it's mechanically or otherwise amplified, are we on solid ground to say, you can say whatever you want, but you can't amplify? Like, where does the law take us when I ask that question?
So,
As long as you enforce it
across the board.
You could have a concert.
We're familiar with the group that has been referenced. They were not just at the Pride Festival, they were at Abbey Road, Thunder over Louisville. You can Google them. They're a very litigation-oriented group. They've actually won cases. So we believe that we adhere to what is a case out of the federal district court in Tennessee that said that they're entitled to be on public property outside the event area if it's a private event area. Obviously, it would be nice if we did have an updated noise ordinance so we could at least enforce the decibel, but we have to enforce it not just against them, but everyone else.
So the magic words are time, place, manner, content neutral.
Can you have a noise ordinance in a certain area? We could draw
I've given Larry some copies of Evansville's, I've given copies of Fisher's and Carmel's, and some of them are more complex than others, but it can be based on districts.
No, well, I got another question.
Because, Mr. Samuel, to take it one step further, if you're very specific as to where, then you are time, place, and manner. So as long as there's specificity, it's like zoning ordinances
I
for
think if you explain
things.
why, certain zones believe that it should be a difference.
I just have probably a technical question, and I don't know if anybody in the room can answer it, but we have our parks director back here. He could probably get the answer to it for us. In other settings, they have white noise machines and noise canceling machines, technology. I'm wondering what it would cost, if it's even out there, if we had some of these noise canceling machines that were up on a pole, that were facing the residents, that would not affect the park, but it may deaden or cancel some of the peripheral noise. I don't know if they're effective. Well, I know they're effective in other areas, arenas, but I'd be curious, because if that's something, then you could have maybe both. You could have your bands, and you could have some folks with a little bit of peace. But
and also, if you look at those other ordinances, they list several exceptions. You look at those three cities, the exceptions are common. And you might want to Google Evansville, because the facts we're dealing with here are very similar to what Evansville had.
So do we want to put a committee together to do this? Or is this something we're going to do as a council as a whole? It seems like it really affects downtown, Mr. White. I mean, how would you like to see this move forward? Put a committee together?
I think we should put a committee together. I think the administration needs to be involved, and the police department.
Well, I don't want to just, I know I said earlier, District 1 is different because they have all the events and they have the businesses, but I'm also here representing the ones that contacted me in the 5th District, and I want to stand up for my residents that have to get up in the morning. I want to stand up, I think all residents should have that respect, because when you've got music blaring at 1 o'clock, 2 o'clock in the morning, and you got to get up at 4 o'clock, because the lady that called me said she gets up at 4, she has to be at work by 6. There has to be some respect here for the
To me,
residents.
it sounds like we have 2 volunteers so far. There's 3.
Mr. Paris?
And 1 more, but
Oh,
anyway.
we got 3?
3?
That's enough.
Can we have citizens on it?
I would suggest that at this juncture, that you keep it within the legislative body, merely because you are going to have to develop the legislation, and then after you develop some legislation, then it would be more appropriate to get the public input. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that makes sense. So we'll have Mr. White, Mr. Paris, and Ms. Gill, and the administration work on this and hopefully bring it back to council sometime in the future. Is there a date certain you want to throw out there, try to push the committee to get it done?
Yeah, I would probably.
Yeah, Mr. Wilder, right?
I guess Larry will just have to look at his schedule and send something out.
So,
But I also want to say,
No, I know.
Larry, because I know that, I understand that it has to be content neutral. I think about the events, placement of the state, there's got to be some common ground. So moving forward, I want them to know that they are being heard. When you have the stage that's right there in front of their homes, like the lady that she came up the last to speak, I'm sorry, I'm terrible with names, I forgot it, but she said literally where the stage was, how big the stage was, and where the houses were. When you can't have equality in your home, then we need some sort of compromise.
Yeah, I would suggest that the body that gives them the access to these groups, the access to that particular piece of property to use, can mandate certain things about locations and those things. So that may have just drug Mr. Northam into this as well. And so everybody knows from the public, because it is in fact a committee created by the president of the city council, then the meetings will be noticed and they'll be public. It's just the issue of participation. Does that make sense? So everybody will know when the committee is going to meet, the place and time, 48 hours in advance.
Well, Larry?
Yes, sir.
I think we passed a fireworks ordinance maybe a year ago.
Yes, sir, you did.
That limited the time that fireworks could
Correct.
be set off. So that would be something that should also be looked at. Limit as to the time that the music or the loud music could be played.
I would recommend that this is a little like the grand jury now, and you're just going to look at whatever.
Thank you for that, by the way.
Fireworks started in my neighborhood Friday night, by the way, so.
All right, so I think we have a plan to move forward with this issue.
But whatever ordinance we pass doesn't affect permitted events, right?
Well,
You
it
can
may.
put it in the ordinance.
Well, you can still be
Exemptions.
exceptions, and I would suggest that have some type of permitted
Right.
process. I mean, you process.
And what I'll do in between is I'll take and do what lawyers do best, and we're the most practiced at, and that's steal a whole lot of other people's really good ideas and try to make them look like they're mine and give them to you to consider.
Thank you, Mr. Walsh.
Yes.
One question,
Next,
for
Scott.
our information, because we don't know what you're talking about. It will be a notice when you're going to meet. What kind of notice?
So under the statute for under open door, much like all of these meetings, within 48 hours before the meeting, and that's,
Oh, it'll be on the agenda, you mean?
it will be a separate meeting.
Separate meeting?
So we'll place notice in the media. So I send notices to the Courier Journal, the Evening News, and then there'll be notice posted at the.
Okay.
And I would suggest that if you contact Ms. Collins' office, you all actually put people on that ask for notices. No, I'm not just making that up. It's been a long 2 weeks. So, but that's
If we get the notices, a lot of times we don't
yeah,
get
and I will
notices.
send it to you. I'll put you in the email.
Okay, and about 60
Okay.
days, 90 days, sooner, later?
What I'm going to suggest, if it's okay with Mr. Ferris, Mr. White, and Ms. Gill, is just maybe circulate an email among us with some suggested dates and times, and then let everybody kind of tag up what works.
All right.
Does that sound fair, guys?
Yeah.
Okay. That answer your
All right,
question?
thank you.
Yeah, I'll see about getting notified
Yes.
from somebody or neighbor.
Thank you.
All right, next up, Mr. Merkley, a resolution approving a statement of benefits for proposed real estate and personal property tax abatement. Is there a resolution number related to this?
Number 7.
This comes to you with a favorable recommendation from the Redevelopment Commission. It's an abatement for a project, C.E. Hughes Milling Incorporated. It's a real property abatement for 10 years and a 5-year abatement on personal property, and I believe the applicant has a representative here, and that's Paul Wheatley, if you have any questions. I think in your packet has the application, also the statement of benefits as to the total investment of the project along with the employees.
Well, thank you, Mr. Merkley. For the record, my name is Paul Wheatley. Our business is at 314 Hunter Station Road in Sellersburg, Indiana. As Mr. Merkley mentioned, I'm here to represent C.E. Hughes Milling, Inc. tonight. Her location is at 3113 Holman's Lane. As Mr. Merkley mentioned, this is a retention project. She's retaining 26 jobs and adding 4 additional. The new employees, their wages will range between $20 and just under $42 an hour. This is basically a retention project. She has been renting on Holman's Lane for 7 years. She's looking to buy her building, expand the building, and add additional personal property and equipment to her organization. The warehouse will be approximately 5,000 square feet. And, you know, frankly, this is a Jeffersonville success story. Caroline Hughes is the principal of this company. She's grown the business to where it's at today and looking to expand it in the future. So happy to answer any questions. And as Mr. Merkley mentioned, it did receive a favorable recommendation from the Redevelopment Commission at the meeting in May.
I'll just comment that I appreciate the score sheet that was included. That helps, you know, validate the project.
It's a score of 103, which puts it in the highest category as you set abatement schedules.
Is that 3113 Holman's Lane?
Correct.
Is that it's back behind the...
Yes.
Is it back behind the...
Sellersburg.
Yeah.
Yes.
It's got the little driveway. I figured that's where it was. I didn't want to drive back there. I didn't know if it was a private thing or whatever, but I just wanted to verify it wasn't in my district as I could see in his district. Thank you.
Make a motion to approve 2019 R7.
Second.
We have a motion and second to approve 2019 R7. Any other discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed?
Thank you.
Passes. Thank you.
Mr. Stovall, Mr. President, I have also the statement of benefit pages, and they're in the back, and there's a place here that'll say for you to sign. Okay?
Okay.
And I'll pass this around.
Mr. Merkley, public hearing, and we'll go ahead and, what's the ordinance number?
30.
30. All right. Mr. Merkley, the zoning change.
No, number 29.
No, 29 was the tax abatement, I thought.
No, that was a resolution.
Resolution 7.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah.
Mr. Merkley.
This is a matter that has been referred to with a favorable recommendation from the Planning Commission. This actually is an application that's been made by the Planning and Zoning Department and the Planning Commission to amend certain portions of our existing zoning code. As you're aware, our zoning code dates back to 2000. A lot of things have changed since 2000 as it relates to residential development and the movement or the direction that a lot of developers want to go. So I think Chad is here from Planning and Zoning to explain these changes to the zoning code as it relates to the developmental standards in our two of our residential districts, R1 and R3. I think a lot of it has to do with setbacks, correct, Chad?
Good evening, Council. Planning staff is looking to amend the setback requirements in the R1, R2, and R3 residential zone districts. These are all our single-family zone districts. These really, what we consider minor amendments, will help alleviate some of our most common complaints from local residents, also some complaints from local developers, and simplify some of the processes in our office. All the changes are outlined in your staff report, but wanted to give you just a little synopsis for the record. The R1, this is our larger lot, more suburban properties. The setbacks for primary structures were formerly 10% of the lot width. We are asking to standardize that to 6 feet. The R1 setbacks for accessory structures were at 10% of the lot width, and we are standardizing those to 5 feet. These two changes help eliminate a lot of disparities from lot to lot. We had areas of the community where a neighbor would have a 70-foot lot where they had to build a utility shed 7 feet from the property line. Their neighbor has a 120-foot wide lot. They have to build their shed 12 feet from the property line. The neighbors, the neighbor who had to move their tool shed 12 feet in was, would get really frustrated. It also eliminates a lot of hassle for us as staff in terms of calculations. The code really doesn't stipulate 10% of what, and when you get on really strange trapezoidal lots out in suburban areas, sometimes it can be very confusing. So setting these to standard widths will really help us out in the office as well. In R2, we're changing the setback for primary structures from 7 to 6. This is just a little, a tiny minor change. Some of the developers have asked us, especially when they're dealing with cul-de-sacs, that it gets really hard to meet some of those setbacks. So we're shrinking that just a little. And then in R3, which is our most dense urban lots that you find mostly downtown, we are changing the setback for accessory structures. These are your garages and tool sheds and such, from 5 feet to 2 feet. Oddly enough, the setbacks in the R3, which tend to be very narrow lots, were actually greater than the setbacks in the R2 district. And so we're not sure if maybe there was an error, a typo, something when the code was written, but certainly causes a lot of hassles for our community members who live downtown. Pretty much makes alley-loaded garages almost impossible on most lots. So changing those accessory structures from 5 to 2, and then also changing the rear yard setback from 3 foot to 2 foot, just to help maximize the use of these really small, tight lots. That's pretty much what's in front of you today. Let me know if you have any other questions. Thanks.
Well, I have a question. So this happened to my lot. It's a large lot, but it's like pie. And my front was 220 feet, my back was 10 feet, so I had to be 22 feet off of the side, which was impossible. So we had to get a variance. So I'm happy to do that. But my question is, so the standardization and just making it 100%, but when I was told at that time that the setback was to my structure, like the wall of my structure. Well, first of all, is that true? Like, is that what we're measuring to, or is it any part of the structure to the property line?
Is the wall of the structure. So if you have an eave, for instance, on your house that hangs over that 7 foot, that, does that make sense? That doesn't apply. It's for the wall of the structure.
Okay,
yes.
That's what I was told, okay. Well, then that means, an eave, my eave is 18 inches with a 4-inch gutter, it's 22 inches. If the setback's only 2 feet,
so now
you can have this much distance between the two neighbors' structure.
Oh, so clarification, that setback is only for accessory structures. So that's decks, pools, tool sheds. Usually those don't have the same kind of overhangs that your house would. So we have a primary structure setback. That's generally your house, your residence, the building that's on the main building that's on the property. And then we have setbacks for accessory structures. And those are things, like I said, decks, small garages, small tool sheds, those kind of things. So we'd be just the 2 foot would only apply to these smaller.
And the 2 foot is only in R3, which is essentially downtown.
Correct.
Well, Chad, one of my concerns, and I probably should have raised it at our planning and zoning meeting, was in downtown, if you've got a 2-foot setback on an alley, how would the fire department or the garbage trucks be able to navigate some of them? Because some of our alleys are extremely narrow already.
I think you would find if you went into our alleys right now that a lot of the structures are 2 feet or less, even maybe some cases, from the alley. So I don't get the sense that it would impede things much more. Most of the downtown area was actually built before we even had any of these zoning laws. So there's a lot of things that are kind of thrown out the window in some regards in the downtown. But
Well, before we go any further, this is a public hearing, so let me go ahead and open up the public hearing, see if there's anyone here in the public who'd like to speak for or against or regarding this topic. Is there anyone here who'd like to speak regarding this zoning topic? Seeing no one, we're going to go ahead and close public comment. Is there anyone, is there any other questions by the council?
Oh, I just wanted to add that during the planning and zoning meeting, a lady did speak for clarification, and I think it'll be addressed when they come in to apply for a permit, because she asked, how do I know if I'm in R1, R2, or an R3? So I just want to state that publicly now. That'll all be addressed when they come in and apply for the permit. They'll verify what, if they're in which residential 1, 2, or 3 that they're in. So if there's no further questions, I'll make a motion to approve 2019 OR 29.
Second. Is this going to need?
It's a one and done.
It's a
One time
one and done.
It's a one and done for rezone.
29 or 30?
This is 29. 30, the other one was 2019 R7 was your tax abatement. 2019 OR 29 is this one.
We have a second on this motion.
Not yet. All right, we have a motion and a second to pass 2019 OR 29. Any other discussion?
Well, and it's my fault. One more, sorry.
This is your discussion.
I'm going to vote no, and I'll probably end up voting yes. But you all may not realize, I've been out of the country 2 weeks. I got back late last night. I'm trying to wrap my mind around this. So I would have preferred that we would have tabled it, but now there's a motion second. It's totally fine. But I'm going to vote no, and it's not even necessarily that I'm against this. I just have some issues like where I live. That means, for example, I have a detached garage. It has gutters, it has eaves, it has a 2-foot overhang, and I know it's not as close as as downtown. You know, we're talking about bigger distances than 2 feet, but you're almost setting up a situation in which somebody could build so close to the property line that really to maintain their own property, they have to come on someone else's property. And I haven't sorted that out yet in my mind. So I'm going to vote no, but that doesn't mean I'm like a hard no. I just haven't been able to like really study this and look at this from every angle. So I just wanted to let you know that as well. And I do apologize. It's my fault. I chose a vacation in this time. So I'm going to vote no because I'd like to think about it more.
Was that issue brought up at planning and zoning, or was that?
The issue did come before Plan Commission, but no one had specifically spoken to that issue necessarily.
Because, and then like with downtown, I'm not that familiar with downtown, I'll be the first one to admit it, but if I even put a shed and then only have 2 feet, well, a lot of people have fences. How can you even get between?
Yeah,
you know, I'm just trying to sort out all these little details, which I would call you about normally, but I wasn't here to do so,
And in defense of things, I will say that the property that I own in the downtown actually is, the house itself is sitting 1 foot from the property line.
Yeah.
So you have to have good neighbors, and you talk to your neighbor and say, hey, I need to fix something, and you come over and you deal with it. I mean, yeah, it can be tricky, but.
I have a question.
Yes.
If I, for example, let's say if I have an empty lot, a buildable lot next to my house, and I'm in R1, and so what would be the setback for the house, and what if they had a detached garage? What would be the setback from my property line?
So the new house, so if there's a empty lot next to you,
It'd be
the
6
house
feet
is
for the
6
primary
foot
structure.
for the primary structure and 5 feet from the property line for any detached garage, shed, deck, pool,
What is it now?
etc. It is currently 10% of the lot.
Of the lot frontage. So that's why, like, if your lot front is 100 feet, well, now your
Well,
setback is 10.
actually, it doesn't specifically, the code doesn't specifically say lot frontage. So the code is very ambiguous. We're not sure what, it just says 10 feet of lot width.
The only reason I chimed in, that was what was enforced, and I was told and this was long before you were, I mean, that was 13 years ago, but that's the way they enforced it then.
If you have for example, if you have a half-acre lot, I don't know how that comes out. I guess my question is, how much are you reducing the setback for like a half-acre lot, or some lots that are one or an acre? Have you taken into consideration you say it's not a big difference, but if you have some subdivisions have half acres, 2 acres, that is going to potentially affect.
Correct, although I think you'd find that most people would not put the house on one side of a large lot. They usually put that sort of toward the center. I mean, not always, but, yeah.
They're going to build it on a lot where it's cheapest to build it on a lot.
And any other discussion? Any other questions or comments? Seeing none, we have a motion and a second, so we're going to go ahead and vote. All those in favor of 2019 OR 29, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Aye. So it still passes. Next up is item number 16, an ordinance changing zoning. Mr. Merkley.
And this is number 30.
This is number 30, and this is going to be a public hearing, and there is somebody who signed up wanting to speak about it, but go ahead, Mr. Merkley.
Yes, this also comes to you with a favorable recommendation from the Planning Commission to rezone this property from C2, which is medium to large commercial, to I2, which is industrial, heavy industrial. This property is out off Willinger Lane near the animal shelter. In fact, a portion of this property is already zoned I2. I don't know if there's a representative here from the applicant. Yes. Good.
So I signed up on that. Scott Hanna, 603 North Shore Drive, Jeffersonville, Indiana, 47130. Scott Hanna, partner with Heritage Engineering, on behalf of my colleague John Campbell, who presented this case to the Planning Commission, and the owners, Red Ball Recycling. Here to answer any questions. We had a favorable recommendation. Yeah, just here to answer any questions, basically.
And the planning and zoning, I brought up my concerns about that bridge. It's a one-lane bridge.
Mm-hmm.
And so I do want it stated here publicly that you all did check into the I don't know what the structurally sound of the bridge or whatever, I guess it is. A what? Low capacity, thank you.
Yeah, I mean, it was, and John, he said, Ms. Gill might say that, so he briefed me on that. So the bridge is inspected every 2 years. It was built in 1970. It was reconstructed in 1999. It's rated for 20 tons, which is a fully loaded semi. So it is one lane, but it's structurally very sound. So, and we had spoken with Brian Dixon with Clark County Highways and got this information from him.
During the rezone, the planning and zoning meeting, did anyone speak for or against it? Were there any letters for or against the project?
I wasn't out there.
I don't remember.
I don't think so.
I don't think so.
Well, let's go ahead and open this up to a public hearing. Is there anyone here that wants to speak for or against this rezone? Anyone here to speak for or against this issue? Seeing no one, we'll go ahead and close public comment. At this time, be happy to entertain any motions.
Okay, I'll make a motion to pass 2019 OR 30.
I'll second. We have a motion second to pass 2019 OR 30. Any other discussions? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Passes. Next up, Ms. Metcalf, an ordinance transferring certain funds within the same department.
This is a request from Street Sanitation for $25,000 for other supplies, which would be for the trash cans, purchase of trash cans.
Motion approved 2019 award 31 on the first and second.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to pass 2019 OR 31 in the first and second reading. Any other discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed? All right, Ms. Metcalf, you're up again.
And this request is to appropriate the cash in both of these funds, the Nahan Fieldhouse Rehabilitation Fund and the Chapel Lake Park. Nahan is a donation fund, so we get donations from different entities to do that rehab to that building. And then also the Chapel Lake, $200,000 is the parks portion that was deposited into that fund.
So for clarification for the public, this is, the cash is there, it just needs to be appropriated so it can be spent.
Yes.
Take a motion.
Yes, we are.
Motion to approve.
On what readings?
First and second.
Okay.
We have a motion and a second to pass 2019 OR 32 on the first and second reading. Any other discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed?
Aye.
Mr. Wilder, any attorney comments?
Mr. Samuel indicated I spoke way too long and I stood up and talked through the noise ordinances, so I have nothing else.
All right. Department head report, I know, or comments. I know we have someone here. Your time's passed.
Hey, guys.
Yes, sir.
Back in May, we went to Pierce to do the specking of the next fire apparatus for the east end. Upon doing that, we found some changes that we needed to make. So what I'm here for is to ask for permission to go with those change orders. I'm not asking for any more money, but to work it out within our budget that we do have. So some of those things were to add kind of turn that fire apparatus from a residential to / commercial firefighting apparatus because it's going to go in the east end up by River Ridge. So we want to do some changes there. I've worked with Heather. She's got the numbers, and I kind of forwarded some of those emails to some of you guys of what the numbers and the changes are going to be. So I'd like to go forward with this now, which I have to get this order placed for Pierce so I can get this truck delivered by November.
And so it's my understanding that these changes are made to meet the needs of the district out there because of River Ridge.
Yes.
Okay, I'm fine with that. Well, you need a motion to proceed?
I also,
Same question?
and I talked with you, Sean, and you indicated that it wouldn't take an additional appropriation, you were just transferring monies that's already in your budget.
Yes, sir.
So does he need a motion? What do we need here?
Needs a motion.
Motion.
Second.
Don't we need a motion where the money's being transferred from?
No, we're just giving him the opportunity to go make the change.
All right, I didn't know if that's what we were fast tracking that. Okay.
So we have a motion and a second, and just to clarify, the motion is to allow him to place the order, the change order?
Yes, sir.
Any other? Go
Well,
ahead.
and just to clarify that he's going to find it in his budget, so Heather will be bringing us a transfer ordinance, so when that time's needed. Okay.
Better yet, that happened. Any other discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed?
Thank you, guys.
When do you think it'll be done?
November. We pick it up November.
First payment
That starts the first of the year.
next year?
Yes, 2020.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, thank you, guys.
All right, anyone else? Department head report there, Mr. Northam, you want to speak on that? Okay. Seeing none, public comment, we already went through that. City council comment, Mr. White.
No comment.
Mr. Pierce.
I just want to say I'm not going to be able to make it next meeting. I'm going to be at a company I work for has a mandatory meeting in Ohio, so I will not be here. And I also wanted to invite everyone out to the River Stage Friday night at 7 o'clock. The band that I play in is playing that night.
He's
What's
a
the-
drummer.
what's the name? What's
He's
the
a
name?
drummer.
Lefty Lunatic.
Our councilman's a lunatic. Do not quote me that, don't put that, do not put that in.
Mr. Maples.
Have a safe 4th of July and be conscious that we have a new fireworks ordinance, I believe, that we worked out last year. Ignorance of the law is no exception.
Ms. Gill?
I'm just happy for it. Oh,
I was going to give some of my time today.
go ahead, Vicki.
We're yielding time to
This is
Mrs. Thomas.
important.
Okay.
Last meeting, JHS Wrestlers, I have not heard from them yet.
Okay. He is in Fargo, so I will.
Okay.
I'll make a note of it.
Yeah, so we got to get a hold of them to get that information to do
It's
that.
the National Wrestling Tournament.
Yeah. I got one more thing, too.
Go right ahead.
Because we forgot. Today, when came in to set up, all the microphones were unplugged. This was all unplugged. Somebody had been in here messing with all this stuff.
Uh-oh.
So we are hoping that it records good tonight. We're not sure, but it was all,
Nothing was missing though, right?
we don't think so. But anyway, it's all unplugged. It was all moved around, and we don't know who was in here, so.
Ms. Gill?
I just wanted to thank Councilman Harris for, came in Friday and got a little idea of what I do going through claims, and I do appreciate him coming in, and I'll extend the offer if anybody else wants to come in. I'll gladly show you what's the process and give you some sort of understanding, but I appreciate him coming in and asking and being able to show him all that. That's it.
Mr. Hawkins?
I really do have a long list of messages for many of you. Just being gone and away from internet service was a blessing, but I couldn't get a hold of anybody, so I have a lot of catching up to do. I apologize if I ignored you. It certainly wasn't my intent. And that also slowed down. I talked last time we talked about getting a redevelopment report that we turn into the state to everybody. I didn't follow with that either, so we'll deal with. I'll call you. We'll get to it in the next meeting for sheriff. Also, today, well, the one thing I did do today, other than sleep and recover, was I went out and checked out the new Chapel Lake Park. It's obviously muddy and mucky, but it's going to look fantastic. Like they're starting to get the shelter in place, and you can see the outline of where the lake is. It's coming along. I'm sure it's behind schedule like everything else in America because of all the water that we've gotten, but it's going to be fantastic. It's really excited about. And then lastly, happy 4th of July to everybody. I mean, I just got back from being abroad, which I do with students often, and it just solidifies the fact that we may not be a perfect country, but we're better than all the rest of them, without question. So happy 4th of July to everybody, and take a minute to appreciate what a great country we live in. There you go.
Mr. Ellis?
At our next city council meeting, I will bring a financial report from the JUEZ so that the council can at least see some transparency in what UEZ does. And I'll continue to try to keep the council upgraded about the things that is done at UEZ. We have a lady that's president now that is also very transparent in what she does, and hopefully that our treasurer's report and everything from there will continue to be available for us.
Thank you. And Ms. Gill would like a little more time.
Yeah, I'm sorry about that. I got thrown from it. But last Monday night, I want to let you all know that we had a public meeting here with Lynn A. Shack and at JTL, and Dale Orm was with the sewer board. You remember the plan that we had to put in place to give to the DOJ and EPA? Well, they presented to the public, just so everybody knows what's going on, and I want to happily report that there was representation here from Clarksville, and Clarksville will be submitting a letter that they are behind us now. We've worked all that out. I want to publicly thank Clarksville for working with us, and Lynn has been tremendous in giving them all the information that they needed. So they're going to withdraw their letter and submit a letter supporting us, which means a lot in this process. So I just wanted to publicly thank that and let you all know that that did occur.
Mr. Samuel?
I had emailed the council today, hopefully everybody was able to get it. If not, let me know, with some notes that were requested about the idea that has been discussed about setting aside money every year for homeless needs and services. And hopefully at the next meeting we can talk about that and potentially move that forward if that's the will of the folks. If it's not, I'd ask you, send me your feedback. I don't want to waste people's time, but if there's some interest, then I'm going to keep pushing that. And then I have a question for Heather. If we establish a non-reverting fund for that purpose, what all is required on your end, our end, whatever?
It would be, funds are established by ordinance, so an ordinance would need.
Okay.
And so everybody understands, so the issue that kind of need to address is, you create a non-reverting fund, you say it's for a specific purpose, it could be for no other purpose, but then you're going to have to figure out how it is distributed and who makes the decisions to distribute it, which becomes the kind of the tricky part when you say, I'm going to set aside a chunk of money for homelessness, and then the answer has to be, okay, the money's here, now how and who do we entrust with making that decision? And I mean, that's just the issue.
Where's the money coming from that you want transferred to the new fund? Then you also have to appropriate that fund. So it might be, depending on what you're thinking, it might be an easier way to just appropriate a specific line in a fund already and spend it out of that particular fund. I don't know where you're wanting to have the money come from.
And I heard Mr. Merkley there, I think that's a good idea. You set up a fund, and that one ordinance is to set up the fund, the other ordinance is to outline how it would be spent.
Edit is what I'm talking about.
It would kind of be the same way that we did for the arts.
Yep, that's what I was thinking.
Yeah. So if the money that you have transferred over is not 100% spent every year, then it
stays. It can
stay
roll
there and it
forward.
could roll over, yes.
The purpose of it remains for the, yes. And I did speak with the mayor about this, and he said he was on the same page.
Okay.
So
The trick's just going to be how and who and when and what.
the intent, not that we're going to go into it now, but we are. The intent is to have the council put out an RFP twice a year, request for proposals. Proposals come back from folks that actually provide services. Whether it's the committee or the full council, it's up to them to say. They select, just like a grant type process, similar, and then if none of the proposals are appropriate or fit what they feel like they need for Jeffersonville, then the money's not distributed and it rolls over till the next RFP. And that's why there's 2 a year, one in the spring, one in the fall.
So we'll get some more detail in the next meeting.
Well, my recommendation is go back to the old emails I sent out and look at that one ordinance when you all were talking about requiring people to come forward with requests for special projects, and then that could be the beginning baseline or something to grow out. Does that make sense?
Yep.
So, yeah, and I do suggest having two separate ordinances, one that establishes the fund of where the revenues are coming from and what you can spend it on, and then all the different, so if you have to amend that at some point, you're not amending the one that's establishing the fund.
Okay, great. Is that it, Mr. Samuel?
Yes, sir.
And Mr. Ellis would like a little more time.
I want to ask, Mr. Merkley, I have a question to ask you. When Nathan said something about homelessness, I was reminded about the Mariposa Springs project, and I was told that the administration had been working with the owner of a piece of property and the developer of Mariposa Springs. And
we have not heard back from either one of them. I know the deadline to get something on the next meeting is tomorrow, so we have not heard.
Well, I just wanted to clarify that because I had been accused of being in support of the Mariposa Springs. And when, at the time that I was supporting the Mariposa Springs going in that area, it was at the old Days Inn with Arvin Batt was made a proposal to them to sell them that property. But the property that I'd heard Mariposa was going on, I was the one that asked the Parks Department, matter of fact, I think Paul will probably remember when I asked the Parks Department to see if we could buy that property for our park. So I just wanted to clear that up.
I know the parcel we're looking at was almost finished on their house. Almost finished on their house.
All right, moving on, Mr. Merkley, I have a question. And I talked to you briefly about this, the corner of Charlestown Pike and Worley Road. We do own that property now, there's two parcels?
Yeah, 2 parcels.
And are we going to, do you have any idea or a time frame as far as drainage in the park?
Back with me, I'll talk to Tam tomorrow on that. We probably need at least put a time frame together on the project.
Thank you. And then there was some discussion about having maybe an executive session in the future. Is there still a need to set up an executive session, or will just, if it happens, it happens? I didn't hear anyone speak up on it.
48 hours before the next regularly scheduled meeting, give us notice.
Okay. Well, if we need to, we will. With that, I have nothing else. So, meeting adjourned.